Hello again, this is Mike with Toy Train Tips and Tricks. And it's been just about a year since I started construction on the new version of my Fun Lines layout. And so I thought this would be a timely opportunity to go back and go through the process of how I planned out the layout and help some of those who are, you're either starting your first layout or planning your next big layout. And some of the processes that I've learned over my 40 plus years of model railroading and building layouts in different scales, some of the best practices that I've learned along the way to help me build an effective and enjoyable layout. So this is part one of the layout planning series. I'll take you through several parts, and we're starting today with the most important step, which is evaluate your space. Where are you going to build the layout? How much space do you actually have to do what you want to do? Because rule number one of model railroading is no matter how much space you actually have, you will always want more. We look at a room and we envision what we can do with it, and we think we can build a scale model of the Pennsylvania Railroad main line from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh. And what we find is that we have enough room to maybe model the siding of the Pennsylvania Railroad between Harrisburg and Pittsburgh. So no matter how much space we actually have, we'll always find that it's like, oh, we have to make some compromises to get what we want. So even if your space looks like this, it's never enough to do what we think we can do. So some compromise, and you'll be happier in the end if you realistically evaluate what your space can do for starters. So obviously I didn't have space that looked like this. My space looked like this, which is more typical of a layout room. This is give or take a few inches, roughly 12 by 12 with a little additional cutout in the corner. So yeah, this is more typical of what most layout rooms would look like and what most of us have to work with. So be prepared to compromise. I wanted that kind of space with the new house, and I got the 12 by 12. So be prepared to compromise. So step one, obviously you want to measure the space that you have. Like I said, give or take a few inches. It's roughly a 12 by 12 with a small cutout on it. So the first thing I had to do was account for any immovable objects that are in that space. What's here that you've got to work around for your layout? Is it a door? Is it a window? Is it your HVAC system? You've got a furnace that you need access to. Electrical access panels, plumbing. What's there that you can't build a layout on top of? What's there that might require some maintenance in the future that's going to require access, and you don't want to have to tear your entire layout apart to replace your furnace should something happen with that, or to make a repair to the water heater, or to get to the electrical panel. So what objects are in your room that you have to account for? In my case, I have an electrical panel and windows. I have an access panel, an access door to my furnace area, which would be necessary should I have to ever have to make a major repair to the furnace. There's a door that I have to work around. And then height-wise, there was a set of built-in shelves. So I needed to make something that was going to be above the built-in shelves if I wasn't going to tear all of the built-ins out. So I had to make the decision, am I going to use it, or am I going to build around it? So also, in addition to the items that already exist you can't do anything about, like meters and furnaces and things like that, also consider your future access needs. Are you going to be remodeling part of your room or near your room? Are there objects in the room that are going to need occasional repair? Furnaces, water heaters, etc. Are there items that you're going to be replacing completely or may someday need to replace? And will you need to find some means of accessing that without totally destroying your railroad? So these, again, are things to consider before driving the first nail or screwing the first screw. Another consideration in space evaluation is the traffic flow. First of all, is your layout room in a place where people will be walking through it to get to other rooms, to a laundry room, to a bathroom, to a rec room? And we need to make accommodations for that traffic. I find that it takes a minimum of 30 inches to make a comfortable aisleway for one person to get by. So if you figure in more space, if talking a laundry room or something like that, you've got you're carrying things, so you're going to have to consider that. How many people do you anticipate having in your layout area at a time? How many operators? Is it just one person, or do you expect at times to have 2 or 3? All of these things need to be considered for access to the layout itself when you're planning out your space. Access to maintenance operations on your layout. Can you reach everything comfortably from where you plan to operate from, or do you need access to the opposite side of the railroad? Again, a good rule, 30 to 36 inches is about the maximum comfortable reach for most people. If you're going to be putting lots of objects 40, 48, 52 inches deep into the layout, are you going to have a way to climb onto the layout to reach those objects for wiring, for scenery, for fixing derailments? All of these things need to be considered. So whether you're planning on going around the walls or in the middle of the room, consider how are you going to access these different areas of the layout before you start construction and before you start track planning. Then look at the room itself, and is there anything in the room that you need to upgrade before you start construction? Is the lighting sufficient? Are there enough electrical outlets, and are they placed in areas that are easy to reach? How comfortable is the flooring? Can you stand on it for a very long time without being painful? Is it a comfortable looking place? What about the ceiling? Do you have open joists that tend to be very dusty? Do you have a drop ceiling? What do you need to put in to make the layout room more comfortable? This is a place that you're going to be spending lots of time. So you want to make it as comfortable as possible. And the best time to do all of this is before you drive the first nail. And then with all of these things in mind, you're finally ready for the next step, part 2, planning your bench work and your track planning. Actually, we're going to start more with track planning first and then figure out bench work beyond that. So part 2 is going to be mostly track planning with a little bit of bench work. But all of these things, all of these space evaluations will be taken into consideration. So I hope you find this useful. Tune in for part 2, bench work and track planning, and continue through, and hopefully this will inspire you to take the next step with your layout, whether it's building your first permanent layout or building the next new super layout, the next one to come along. I hope this helps, and tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and we'll see you next time on Toy Train Tips and Tricks.